Hi, everyone. I'm Tanya Rivero. Thank you for joining us. Congress and the public will hear from Robert Mueller again in just 3 weeks. The former special counsel has agreed to testify about his report on Russian election interference on July 17th. He will participate in a public hearing before both the House Judiciary and House Intelligence Committees. Mueller spoke last month about his findings. He said then the report speaks for itself.
And the report is my testimony. I would not provide information beyond that which is already public in any appearance before Congress.
Just a reminder, Mueller elected not to charge President Trump of any crimes, but he also reiterated that his report does not exonerate the president on the question of obstruction of justice. President Trump will not block or object to Mueller's testimony. Sources on his legal team told CBS News they believe Mueller's testimony could be an opportunity for Republicans to help clear the president of wrongdoing. Here's how the president reacted to the testimony news earlier today.
My only response to Mueller is, does it ever stop? After all of these years and times and people, does it ever stop? And the Democrats use it to try and divert from what they have, because what they've done, if you look and you see, and it's just my opinion, tremendous criminal activity on their side. And they know it, and this is a diversion. But I ask you this, does it ever stop?
And here with us now to discuss is CBSN political contributor Molly Hooper and CBS News national correspondent Chip Reid. Thanks to both of you for being with us. Boy, where to begin? I think we'll start with the Mueller testimony. Molly, he's called it again and again and again a witch hunt, a hoax. When will this ever end? He said. When asked whether he might step in, though, to block his testimony, he didn't say no.
That's right. And Republicans on the Hill and some of the individuals that I've spoken to, they kind of think that perhaps having Mueller up before the committee, taking questions, especially after Bob Mueller said, I'm not going to say anything more than really what's in the report.
Right.
Republicans and the president are hoping that Bob Mueller will be able to make a case for the president.
Right.
In fact, because he wasn't charged with collusion. Bob Mueller did not charge the president. He didn't even recommend impeachment, which is what happened with special counsel Ken Starr, and Bill Clinton. So Republicans are going to seize on that, and the more Trump keeps it out there, the less we talk about Democratic debate tonight.
But Chip, even though Republicans seem to be hopeful that Mueller's testimony will only continue to support the president, clearly the president was annoyed today when we heard him speak about it. Clearly, this has gotten under his skin. When will it end, he says. So, Chip, looking at it from the White House's perspective, you could wonder, when will it ever end?
Well, as far as Democrats are concerned, it won't end, because they really believe that a very strong case was made in the Mueller report that he repeatedly committed obstruction of justice, and they want to get at that, and they are doing an investigation on that, and they say they can't complete their investigation or even really start the core of their investigation until they get to hear from Bob Mueller himself. The White House may say that they're confident he's going to stay within the confines of the report and that it will help the president, but certainly they're nervous because they don't know. Bob Mueller may hear a question that he thinks is worth answering that goes beyond the report itself. Certainly Republicans will be pummeling him to get answers that will help the president. So to think that he's only going to go up there and simply close to verbatim repeat what's in the report, I think is really a pipe dream on both sides. Mm-hmm. It is certainly going to be an interesting hearing. And just hearing it come out of his mouth, these 10 examples of obstruction, if the Democrats ask him to go through each example of possible obstruction of justice, that's going to be very powerful stuff. So the White House probably has good reason to be nervous, even if it doesn't advance it to the point where he says, oh, he committed a crime, which is unlikely, extremely unlikely, I think. But just getting an airing of this where it's not just words on paper, I think could be very significant.
One thing that was surprising about what we just heard the president say, though, it seems like he and Nancy Pelosi are getting along today. They had a rather friendly chat on the phone. tone about the possibility of a humanitarian aid bill for migrant children at the border.
That's right. A senior Democratic aide says that Nancy Pelosi is the one who placed the call at 12:47. It was 15 minutes, and yes, they're working on reconciling the differences between the House and the Senate bill. The House bill puts much more stringent requirements on how the DHS and how HHS spend money in terms of, giving kids water, toothbrushes, things like that. But they spell it out so that there's no room for question, and there's no room for the president to move that money elsewhere. And that's what Democrats in the House in particular are very concerned with. When you look at how he's spending the money on the border wall, that money is coming from the military.
Right.
And that's why Democrats in the House, and this is one way that Nancy Pelosi was able to win over enough of Democrats in her caucus, were able to pass that bill, the $4.5 billion bill, was by putting those stringent requirements on, like the time limits for kids who are being held in these facilities and whatnot. And much less stringent in the Senate bill, but I think that they'll come up with a compromise.
Yeah. So, Chip, tell us about what the Senate is doing in tandem. What kind of humanitarian aid bill have they crafted, and is it more likely that what comes out of the Senate is going to meet the president's approval?
Well, Mitch McConnell has made very clear that he is not going in the direction. He thinks the Democrats in the House really went off the deep end in their bill. I think these bills are going to be quite a bit different. Maybe Nancy Pelosi and President Trump had a nice conversation, and both sides said they want a bill. Of course, neither side is going to say, "Gosh, we don't want a bill." They're both going to take the bargaining position that we do want a bill, and then if they don't get one, they'll blame the other side. But what Mitch McConnell wants and what Ocasio-Cortez wants, and Democratic presidential candidates who are influencing this debate in the House, what they want is significantly different. And I don't think anybody should say, based on the president's remarks, it looks like we're going to get a bill.
Right. And Chip, the president was asked about that harrowing photo of the migrant father and his daughter dead in the river, having just tried to cross over the Rio Grande River. How did he respond, and how is Washington in general responding to that photo today?
Well, as with so many things in Washington, both sides are badly split on this. The president made clear he believes it's because of this flood of people coming up. It's the fault of the Democrats who want a so-called open border policy, which of course they don't want. He also seemed to fault the people themselves for coming up here and wanting to get in when they're not going to be able to. And on the Democratic side, you have people like Beto O'Rourke, who's a Democratic candidate for president, who said that these deaths are Trump's fault. And there are other Democrats who have suggested that too on Capitol Hill and with some of the immigration groups. They believe that what happened here was that this father and mother and daughter, the mother survived, got as far as a bridge. They would not let them in. They have a metered system, as they call it. Only a certain number of people get in to apply for asylum. It's very difficult. And so they were sent back to the other side of the bridge. And then in desperation, they decided to cross the river. So, and that is President Trump's asylum policy, those critics say, that is causing that logjam there, not allowing people to apply for asylum and making them do crazy, desperate things like jump in the fast-flowing Rio Grande River. So both sides dramatically different views on why this happened, and I don't think that's going to change.
But asylum policy, of course, in the spotlight, the president accusing the Democrats of not getting on board with changing asylum policy. Well,
but both sides do agree that more money needs to go down to the border. One of the reasons that Trump would argue this is not his fault is because he asked for more border agents. And right now, the border agents, listening to testimony on Capitol Hill, are stretched so thin that they can't process the claims quickly enough. So you have these things, whereas Democrats would argue, well, we're not going to give you that money because you're going to do other things with it. So therein lies the rub.
Such a heartbreaking photo, though. It reminds me of the photo of the Syrian refugees. Do you remember? It had a similar effect of that child on the beach there. So heartbreaking, and it really makes people think about the issue in a different way, in a new light.
Well, one thing about Speaker Pelosi is she is very pragmatic when it comes to getting a bill passed. And since the House did pass the Democratic version, with those stringent requirements, now it's time for compromise. The Senate passed package, if Donald Trump can get enough House Republicans to vote for that package, more House Republicans are starting to move away from that. Maybe they are able to, that the House would pass that bill, the $4.5 billion, with mostly Republican votes. But I think Speaker Pelosi, and this is an argument I've heard that she made to some Democrats, is like, by not doing anything, we are basically enacting what we think is Donald Trump's policy, because no money is getting down there.
She has a point. All right, Molly Hooper and Chip Reid, thanks to both of you.
Thank you.